Hey guys, Kid here of Burn 1, finally back with a card of the day review. So Steins actually releases at the end of this week, but I'm going ahead and going to catch up on all of the days I missed. I've been very busy with work-life related obligations, as well as I had to travel recently to Toronto for the regional, and just haven't had a lot of time to go over all these cards that just been coming out. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this live and not try to edit anything or whatever. So here we go. So we have the 2/2 Ferris Neon. It's just like overstat or 8k 2k beater from the TD, has hand on core, which is nice. And then when another character attacks against 1000 power, okay card, probably not going to be used in a meta deck. Next here we have this double R, one of the new double Rs that they spoiled. If all your characters are lab members, this card gains 1000 power, so it's 2500, kind of like Mill Runner. But its secondary effect is very good, I think, for how the deck is going to be functioning. So during your opponent's draw step, you reveal the top card of your deck, and if that card's level 1 or higher, this level 0 goes back to your hand. The reason I think this card is going to be really good, because it works very well with the Chris Brainstorm. Since that Brainstorm, you may have your opponent mill the top card of his deck, and if it's level 2 or higher, then you can draw a card, then discard a card. What this level 0 sets up is that it guarantees that you know what your top card of your deck is. That way, if it's a climax or something you want to actually hit into the clock or whatever, you can choose not to mill, just in case if you do end up drawing and ditching a climax or something like that. I think it'll just make that Brainstorm just that much better. I wouldn't be too surprised if you'll see a combination of like this in the back row along with the Brainstormer, just to do multiple checks throughout the game, which I think could be pretty interesting. It also helps with the Okabe double R with the D-mail as well. So now you know the first card of the 3 you get to look at is not a climax. So you could just potentially pay 1, draw that card, and hold on to it whenever you use the backup in the first attack. But yeah, I digress. So we'll just go ahead and move on to this level 1 climax combo. It's a rare. If you have the level 3, I believe, time traveler version that comes out early. So if you have that in the level zone, this gains 1500 power, so it's a 106k, which is pretty strong already. And we're already looking at a set that wants to be very field based, so having 2k counters without any support already makes this 8k, which in the Japanese meta right now, usually people only get up to 7.5 max at level 1 for combos, so it's a good way to block people out of being able to do their reverse combos at level 1 with a counter. And this set definitely has a lot of counters, as you see coming up. There's another really good counter coming up. So this climax combo climaxes with the cycling climax, which is, I believe, a stock soul. We'll see here in the end. And then once per turn, when this card's damage is cancelled, you can pick 2 lab member trait characters from your waiting room and put it into stock in any order you'd like. So I really, really like this climax combo, mostly because I'm thinking right now that the set is going to be mostly based around being able to spend a lot of stock, or it's going to be very, very standby based, is what I feel is going to happen. So you're either going to plus through free stock and get compression that way through a climax combo like this, and then spend that stock efficiently with like D-mail and plussing from that and other easy pay 1 plus ones that usually suck because you end up having to spend a lot of stock all game, causing you to not have very great compression. But with a climax combo like this, say you use this combo like 2 times a game, and like you triple filled the first one and only 1 works, that's 2 extra stock including the stock, so that means that's 3 extra stock you normally wouldn't have. So you're building 6 stock in 1 turn, which is really, really powerful. It's equivalent to doing the same climax combo with what's the rewrite set, the Shizuru or whatever, or yeah, whatever, the climax combo from rewrite. It's almost the same exact thing, and usually your opponent cancels once at level 1 at least. So if you tri-field this and get 1 cancel off, it's all you need it to be the equivalent of doing the rewrite combo, which I think is really, really powerful, especially since the fact is you can pick any lab trait member, which is literally every card in this set I think is lab trait except for like a couple minor cards. So I think this is a combo that's going to be probably used fairly often as one of the choices, just because its base power is already really strong, and it incentivizes you to go compression and then spin that stock efficiently to get pluses. Next, we have the 1-0 combo. If you have the level 3 in the level zone, it's a 1025 counter, which is absurd. So we're getting a little power creep here. Normally the counters are 102k, but there's already 2 other counters that are 2k power at level 1. One is the D-mail event, and the other one is the blue counter, which I think has already been spoiled, but I'm not sure. Either way, we're gonna show it now if it does come up. So a 1025 counter, if you're already playing green and you're playing some amount of the level 3 Suzuha, it's going to be really easy to put that card into your level zone, because there is cards that manipulate your level zone, like Milky Homes, where you just tap cards to move things around. I think this counter is going to be very, very powerful. So now you're looking at, like, if you use this level 1 combo, it's 6k, and then when you counter, you're now looking at 8-5 territory without any supports or anything like that. That's very, very spooky defensive deck. I really, really like how this deck is as the set looks like right now. It's going to be very focused on a field-based game, which is one of my favorite ways to play the game outside of just comboing into compression all game. So I think field-based decks cause your opponent to think a little bit more, because if they're not very careful on making sure they beat counters or making optimal trades, you countering like almost every other turn, opening up slots on their field, usually generates to a really big tempo advantage. If you like counter 2 to 3 times a game, at just like +1 extra soul 3 times is very powerful in my opinion. And of course, being able to interact with your opponent is always a good thing, especially when there is limited interaction in Weiss itself already. Next, we have this 1-1 support. It's all your other Suzuha characters gain 500 power in a level. So this is really powerful on your level 1 game and stuff like that, causing it to be unreversible by bombs, though I don't know if this card is necessarily going to be played very often. I could see in a standby list this could be a card that could come up. This card also, when it comes into field from hand, you can take the bottom card of your clock and switch it with a lab member or IBN 5100 from your waiting room and swap them. So this helps with color correction, which is very interesting. And they keep printing the bottom card of your clock swapping thing, which is kind of upsetting to me that they keep wording it that way, because I felt like there would be really cool alarms that they were going to spoil later on. But if you've been keeping up with the spoilers, I don't think they've really released any alarm effects, which I thought it'd be really interesting if they did. And finally, it has a startup effect. This would probably be the main reason people would want to play this card, is it just has the pay 2 tap, search your deck for a lab trade character, add it to your hand. So it's a pay 2 plus, but when you're running like this 1-0 combo, you don't care as much about the stock spindage, because you just end up building a lot of extra stock off of one cancel. Though I don't think this card in the end is going to be very useful. It could have its uses depending on like what else gets released with it. Since we don't have the full list yet, it could become interesting just because of the +1 level aspect of it. But outside of that, it's okay card. No one really wants to spend it 1 stock and then 2 more stock after you're playing the support to get +1. And then finally, there's the stock soul that goes with the level 1 combo. I'm really interested in trying out this level 1 combo. It might be the first combo I try out, because you generally already understand how the other combos that they've released so far, I think it's just been like Shimikaze effects and stuff like that. So you know how those combos always play out. But this is a new interesting combo where you're requiring your opponent to cancel and you get a +2 stock, which generally transforms into a +1 eventually. But yeah, anyway, we'll just go on to the next cards. Here is the Daru TD Brainstormer. It's a pay 1 tap Brainstorm. Almost all TDs nowadays come with the draw 1 Brainstorm, and then during your turn all your other characters gain 500. It's an okay card. I could see it being used, but it most likely won't be, just because of the other stuff in the booster set. Or maybe that Daru waifu deck, which I should probably build. But we'll go on to the booster cards being released. So this card is kind of interesting because it is a card that really synergizes well with Standby. So Standby in this set right now is very Ferris Neon synergized with. It has a level 3 and stuff. I think that's coming up, we're going to reveal. So during your opponent's attack phase, you can pay 1 and swap this card with the Ferris card on the field and stand them and swap their position. So this is basically a pay 1, save 1 effect if you're looking at Ferris, like a more Ferris synergized deck. It's a pretty interesting card in that aspect, but it probably won't be played. I do like it though that if you hit a standby, you could send this out into the back row if you have an open slot, and then if your opponent filled something, you can pay 1 to save your level 3 that you early played, which seems pretty powerful. But having the effect on a separate card itself is kind of like a deterrent to even playing this, because you're now wasting spaces in your deck that you could easily be using to put in other stronger effects that will actually affect the outcome of the game a little bit more than saving the level 3. I'm not sure how this card is going to really affect those type of decks, but it's just an interesting effect to have it in a deck that's going to be running standby. Here we have the Climax combo that climaxes with standby, I believe. It's pay 1 when you play the Climax to stand a character. So essentially what you want to do is bring out something that's higher level and then force stand it. You always want to pull something out that's like 2 soul, right? So and then like immediately get advantage from that. You do lose out on like the 1 stock, which should be fine if you're like transitioning that card, that 1 stock, into a card that's going to live on the field because it's overstatted and it has 2 soul. So now you're getting extra damage and causing your opponent to have problems with like a 2/2 beater. And what's nice about this set, like I said, it's so field based. I feel like standby is going to be the major component of the deck. I could be wrong in the end, but I really think standby might be the way to go just because of the amount of counters the set has access to, making it so that if you feel the 2/2/8K or 2/2/9/5, they have to get even further in their power level just to be able to reverse that character. And usually these 2/2s people are pulling out are going to have hand on court anyway, so even if you do end up killing it, it's just you didn't really accomplish much. But yeah, I think this card is going to be very important in decks that run the 3/2 Ferris. So the 3/2 Ferris, I think, is one of the more stronger cards in the set released. I'm pretty sure some people are going to be like, you're an idiot for thinking that, but hear me out on this. So it has a very easy effect of 2 or less climaxes in waiting room, it gets -1 level in hand. It comes into play and you heal 1, which is a very powerful effect. I'm always advocating that healing sooner rather than later is more important, or a stronger effect. So if I can heal at 2, it's always going to be stronger than healing at 3, in my opinion. I know some people do not agree with that statement, but that's just how I felt from playing the game so many years. And the last effect, which Climax combos also with the standby, which is if the battle opponent of this gets reversed, you can pay 1, salvage 1, and your opponent takes 1 damage. So why I think this level 3 along with this level 1 is going to be very strong with standby is the fact that if you have this out at level 2 and you standby out the level 3, what happens is it just makes this card, being, instead of being 3/2 heal 1, it becomes pay 2, salvage 1, burn 1. And it's like, instead of you just basically transition the cost you normally would pay into these 2 effects, so it replaces itself as well as getting pulled out from the waiting room with standby, which I think is very, very powerful. And then along with that, you do miss out on the heal, which kind of sucks sometimes, but you know, some game states you get sit in, you just cannot early play your level 3s early. For whatever reason, you either canceled 3 times after a refresh or something. So I think this combination will become very, very powerful. I feel like most sets or most decks might end up gravitating towards the synergy between the level 1 and level 3 Ferris. I'm not sure what it's going to end up being like, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be something like this. That's like how I want to use the cards. I feel like that's a very efficient way of using your stock, since you do get it's basically pay 2 plus 2 sorta, because you pull out the card on the field from the standby as well as the pay 1, burn 1, and then you salvage 1. You can help you set up for your later game. And then having a lot of stock too makes this synergy even better. So maybe we'll look at green red decks coming along that could be very powerful if they're using like the cycling combo. Though that might be a really weird combination after the whole set gets released, but I guess we'll see going forward. Next, I assume this is the card. This is the card that they kind of want you to pull out with a standby. This card is like only really good if you're playing against like Lucky Star. So it's a 2/2, gains 1k for every other lab member trait character. So it's generally with a full board, it's 10-5. But the secondary effect, which makes it kind of funny, it's very flavorful as well, is that if your opponent has a Taku trait character, the card gains bodyguard. So if you're playing against like Lucky Star, you can stand by this out in the center, and then they have to deal with a 10-5 bodyguard, as well as dealing with counters that are like minimum 2k costless counters, making it like 12-5. And then finally here we have, looks like this is going to be the CR for this set, is the standby, like I said. I really think the set has so much good synergies between a lot of weak, I want to say like not weaker effects, but effects that are just very solid by themselves. But in combination with everything in the end, I think this set's going to be really strong for standby. Alright, next card here. Another TD card. It's a support, 500 power in front. When this card comes into play, look at the top card of your deck and leave it on top or put it on the bottom. Solid effect. I don't know if it's ever really going to get played unless there are effects that really are really important to know what your top card of the deck is. Next we have this rare Okabe. Let's see. Oh, so all your other Rukas, I think this is for the level 1, it gains 1000 power. So it gets a really big wall. Secondary effect is tap. Oh, this is the one where you tap it and then you take the Ruka from the level and the Ruka on the field and swap them around. I believe it's these two cards here, which we'll get into in a second. These swap back and forth between the level zones, and they have their own climax combos, which are attached to the book we'll be revealing. This is an interesting card and an interesting effect. I am not sure how this is going to play out. It seems very powerful just because these cards itself also get pretty big if the other card is in the level zone. Plus this being on the field, they're going to get 2,500 power, so you're looking at some 107Ks, which can be very, what do I want to say, like devastating for most boards that require reverses. So I could see this being the main level 1 game along with the book, though I don't really like book as a trigger. It's still pretty decent, and this combo is going to be a +1 combo once we get to it. Next we have this 3/2 Ruka. This card goes from hand to field. Look at top X and pick one card among them, add it to your hand, put the rest in the waiting room, where X is the number of lab members. So this is a really strong, if you're in blue, you're looking probably to play this card, because it does let you cantrip and find the climax for any climax combos you're looking for if you have something at level 3. The second effect is when this card attacks, give one of your lab trait characters 1500 powers. So this is like, if you give it to itself, it's like a 10-5. And then it has Hand Encore, which is pretty interesting. I'm not sure why they gave it discard a lab trait character and then bring this back rested. I don't know why they did that. I'm not exactly sure why, but interesting. I guess this is another target you could potentially stand by out as well, unless this has a special way to come out early or something like that. I guess as long as you have a 2-soul beater with Hand Encore, it's still a 2-soul beater. So, yep. Finally, like I was talking about earlier, this level 1 climax combo game here. Whoa. So this first one, if you have this one in the level zone, the one below it, it gains 1500 power. So making it a 106k, which is already strong. And then climax combo with the book. Reveal the top card of your deck. If that's a lab trait character, you add it to your hand. So we have this 106k, and then if you're running that combo, I assume we're looking at playing this Okabe. So you're looking at 107Ks, which are pretty spooky at level 1, especially since they're costless. This might be end up being a really good climax combo because of how field-based the deck is going to be with all these really good counters. We get 2/5 counter, a 2k counter, and the 2k event counter as well. It seems like this could be a really, really strong choice. It's a plussing combo too, which is always great. And then the second card that goes with it, it climax combos with the same book, which you see below here. This gains 1500 if the other level 1 is in the level zone. So this card is a 106k. And then the climax combo with the same book, if you have Okabe as another name on a card, for the turn, this gains 4,000 power. So if you need to burst through any really big walls or anything like that, or maybe even in the mirror match, this card absolutely devastates your opponent, because you're looking at 8,000, so 12. It's a 1012k. You can kill level 1s with this if need be, which is or level 3s early plays if need be, which is pretty strong effect. Unfortunately, it's only 1 soul, and when the level 3s came out, you kind of want the extra damage usually to get really good tempo, unless your opponent's like very compressed. So yeah, with these two cards, I can see them being like a really strong level 1 package if you plan to go that route, but it does force you into, so you have 8 slots taken up here, and you most likely at least need to run 3 to 4 of this, because of these effects are really strong, especially being able to swap cards out from the field, which is really important to make the consistency of your level 1 game that much more better. And then finally, we have the book here that it comes with. Alright, we have this 1/1 Mayuri level 1. That is, if the card across from this is cost 0, this card can get reversed. And then on play, you reveal the top card of your deck. If that card is a lab trait or lab member trait character, for the turn it gains 2,000 power. So it's a 1/1/7k usually on play, and then it can't be reversed by cost 0s. This card is pretty okay. I could see this being put into a standby deck. I think any deck or any characters that have like can't be reversed by cost 0s is a very strong effect to have. What's nice about this one though is that it does get power on play if you hard play it from hand, which is pretty solid. So you'll at least be able to kill something, and then they usually cannot retaliate and kill the 1/1, because most sets only run cost 0s until level 2 or 3. It's an interesting card just because of the power pump, I think, but outside of that, I don't know if this will be really played that often, but it's a solid effect, that's all I can really say. Next, we have this uncommon card here. It's Climax combos with the Wind Trigger here. So during your turn, this card gains 2k, and then if with the Climax, which is this Wind Trigger right here, when this card, when it's on play, you can play cost, which is discard 2, and then from your waiting room, you pick a lab member character or up to 2 lab member characters or D-mails and add them to your hand. Or I believe it's any combination because of saying or. But yeah, so basically this is very, very good hand fixing, along with the fact that you get usually you're going to probably use this to get D-mail back to your hand, because D-mail is going to be your main plussing engine and defensive engine as well in any decks that are going to be running Okabe like this. I can see this card being used. I just don't know how effective this card is going to be. I feel like this card could potentially just be a back row support card. Unfortunately, it has this effect where on your turn it gains 2,000 power. So I think like early in the game, this could be a really good beater, and then after that, you can just send this to the back row or something if need be, to just hand fix multiple times to get D-mail engine going very smoothly. Next, we have this 2/1 Chris support here. It levels 3 and higher above in front of this card, gain 2,000 power, and then tap, give a character 1k power. Not much to say here. It's just if you're playing early play level 3s, which I think most red decks will be, solid support along with extra power to bust through any like bigger defensive walls, especially those 14k early plays that are quite annoying sometimes. The ones that gain 4,000 power during opponent's draw step. Okay card, nothing really special. And then we have this 2/1 cannot be targeted by your opponent, and when this card attacks, if the character across from this is level 3 or higher, this gains 1 level and 5,500 power. So this card is supposed to be in combination with this card here together. This should bust through any early play level 3s fairly easily, I guess. And the fact that it has cannot be targeted is something to watch out for, because usually cards that have this card cannot be targeted can be splashed into most decks just to avoid like anti-damage counters, which have been being printed lately somewhat. So we have cards that -1 soul to target level 3 or higher character has been printed recently, as well as Apocrypha has pay for anti-damage counter as well. So just having this cannot be targeted by opponent is a very, very strong effect in general. I don't know if this card will actually be played though. I feel like it won't, but I mean, it's always an option in those cases. Next here we have this 1-0 trial deck, level 1. So the battle opponent of this is cost 0 or lower. You could send that character to stock, and then the bottom card of your opponent's stock goes to waiting room. And it's solid cost 0 reverser. What can I say? It might be played in any deck that just needs that effect or that's in yellow. So here's another double R, Mayuri yellow double R. This is a really interesting and strong effect in my opinion. So what we're looking at here is basically a Ricky. So it's on play, pay 1, and then look up the top 3 cards of your deck. Pick 1 card among them, put it into your clock, and put the rest into the waiting room. Then pick a level 1 or lower trait character from your waiting room and add it to hand. So what I really like about this card is that you get to pick the card that goes into your clock, meaning if you have to use the effect later on, you won't get cards like climaxes stuck into your clock, which is really important. You can also selectively, if you have a 2-color level 1 game, this card makes your life way easier. If you need to, like, if your opponent hits you to 0-6, you clock and say you level red and you really need yellow. You play this, you look at the top 3, I'm sure you'll be able to find 1 yellow card to put in there and then go ahead and salvage your level 1 game or something like that. This card is going to make multiple color level 1 games and stuff being really solid. Oh man, the train's coming by right now. I'm going to go ahead and mute the mic for a bit. Alright, I'm back. So, like I was saying, we're talking about this Ricky effect. It's really strong. I think this is like a somewhat of a power creep, I guess, for the Ricky effect. I really like it. I'm pretty sure this is going to be like an easy 4-of in every deck. Next here we have the level 3 Okabe. What is it? You have to have Mayuri and this Chris, I believe. Yeah. In your level zone, if you do, this card gets -1 level in hand. And then on play, you reveal the top card of your deck. If that card is a level 0 lower character, you can put it to stock. And then when this card goes from hand to field, pick one of your opponent's characters and bounce it back to your hand. So I can see this card being played, not necessarily for the early play aspect of it, because the early play aspect's pretty whatever. But I mean, if you end up using the Ricky and you're already going to use the Chris support and you're going to be in yellow, this seems like an okay effect, or okay card to early play if need be. And then sometimes it's going to be just a 1 cost, which is very strong. And then, but the last effect is what is most important about the card. So on play, you get to bounce one of your opponent's characters. It could even be in the back row, which is really strong that you can pick the back row. So you can get rid of annoying supports or early plays that you can't really reverse. So like against decks like Hina Luck and Logic, if your opponent builds up a lot of markers, you can bounce it away right before they refresh. So now they're forced to have all those cards go back into their deck. Next is the support here, which is solid. Global 500 to lab trait characters, and then tap 2 to swap a card in your level zone with a card in your waiting room, and then give a character +1 level. So like I said, this set has a lot of effects swapping cards around, so this is probably going to be a rare support that's probably going to be played in most decks that need to swap cards around. Next we have this Climax, or this Brainstormer. It's a pay 1 tap 2 Brainstormer, and you mill 4 for every Climax you search your deck for a lab trait character, add to hand and discard the rest. This top part of it though is on Climax, or at the start of your Climax phase, you can give a character 500 power and +1 level, which is a solid effect as well. So you need to play a Climax either to do it. The only downside to this card I can see is that it's a tap 2 Brainstorm, which is something that's been slowly falling out of flavor, because if you have to tap 2, it's just like 1 extra cost basically, or 1 extra like step you have to get there to be able to brainstorm. In some cases this probably won't matter, but it is, in my opinion, a reason that you wouldn't want to play a Brainstormer, especially when you already have a pretty solid salvage Brainstorm that's been revealed already. Then finally we have all these 2-1 events. I hope you've watched the anime, because they're all events of Mayuri dying. So it's just pay 2-1 Saika, kill a Mayuri, heal the top card of your clock to your hand, then send this card to memory. I was hoping they would do something a little bit more cooler than this for flavor-wise to represent this stuff from the show, but pretty cool arts too as well.